You are watching Nimasa this week, the authorized voice for the maritime sector. My name is Iretiola Doyle and you are welcome. Now, as the name of the agency implies, safety is at the core of its functions. This week, we will be meeting with some of the key officials that man the Maritime Safety Department of the agency, and also we'll take a look at some of the vital aspects of the department's operations. Here's that report as prepared by Patrick Doyle and presented by Amanda Akban.
Simply put, the core of the mandate of the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency can be found in its performance of its maritime safety functions. It will therefore not be stretching the truth to say that the Maritime Safety Department is perhaps the most strategic department in the agency, as its very name is embedded in the name of the agency. Recently, the agency embarked on the program to professionalize the staff of the agency, with special attention paid to departments like the Maritime Safety Department. We asked the Executive Director, Maritime Safety and Shipping Development, Captain Ezekiel Balagaba, about that program.
Maritime safety cannot be called maritime safety if you don't have the surveyors, because it's the surveyors form the nucleus of the business we do. So we've employed about 44 of the surveyors, different ranks, master mariners, chief engineers, radio officers. So we are on course.
As a follow-up, we asked the Executive Director how the Executive Management expects to support the new and improved crew at the Maritime Safety Department to achieve the objective.
The responsibility of my office is to provide the environment, the tools. There's no point giving somebody a task and you don't provide the tools. As you are aware, the surveyor's job is involved going to boarding the vessels in the port, offshore locations, and going to port, you need to go with transport. Going offshore, you need vessels. So we are going to provide them the tools, vehicles, vessels, laptops for the surveyors, IT connectivity, so that when they are doing the inspection reports, they don't have to physically send it to us. As they are recording the deficiencies, we should be able to get it at the same time in our office. So we are going to give them all the technical support they need.
Nimasa this week had the unique opportunity of meeting the new team at the helm of affairs in the Maritime Safety Department. The team is led by Engineer Vincent Udoye and includes Engineer Femowe Abel, Engineer Dominic Alim, and Engineer James Ayo. It will appear that Nigeria is more prepared than ever before to take seriously our flag administration duties. We asked Engineer Udoye, the new head of the Maritime Safety and Seafarer Standard Department, how flag state administration differs from port state administration.
When you talk of flag state, we are referring to vessels registered under the Nigerian flag. And when you talk about port state, you are referring to vessels that call at Nigerian ports, but they may be from other countries. And so when we board those vessels from other countries that call at Nigerian waters to carry out inspections, we are carrying out what is called port state inspections. But when we go on board Nigerian flagged vessels, it now becomes a flag state inspection, because these are Nigerian registered vessels. That's the essential difference between the flag state and the port state.
As flag state administration is viewed as a very important function, it will be necessary that its performance be anchored firmly in well-defined mandates. We therefore asked Engineer Udoye where such mandates are derived from to enable Nigeria as a nation comply with this global maritime imperative.
Well, when you talk about the mandates of Nigerian flag administration, you're generally referring to the mandates of Nimasa, Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. Nimasa was formed in 2006 between the merger of the Nigerian Maritime Authority and the Jomalik, of course, 2006. And Nimasa has the responsibility or the mandate to ensure that ships operate in a safe and secure manner, ensuring safety of lives, safety of properties, safe shipping, and cleaner environment. Now, Nimasa is given the mandate to carry out these responsibilities by the Nigerian Merchant Shipping Act of 2007. And also we have the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency Act of 2007, plus of course the Inland and Coastal Shipping Waterways Act, generally known as Cabotage, 2003. So these three acts confer on Nimasa the responsibility to carry out these flag and posted, duties in Nigeria.
It is instructional to note that flag administration functions begin even before a ship is acquired or built. Essential surveys are carried out before vessels are given the privilege of being flagged.
Before a ship is allowed to fly Nigerian flag to be registered in Nigeria, they must definitely satisfy certain conditions. Now, this is not limited to carrying out what is called a condition survey. That is, we must know the initial condition of that vessel before it has been accepted and granted the license to be registered under Nigerian flag. So we'll carry out a condition survey. We have surveyors that do that. And of course, we also look at, not just the survey, even before the conception of the vessel, including the plan approvals for such a vessel. Except those that are already built, then of course we need to go board them from time to time, carry out the conditions. But those that are not even yet built, they must submit the plan approval to be approved by the agency.
On account of the global nature of shipping and maritime affairs, surveys and registration standards have to meet international convention standards. In this regard, single-hull vessels which dominate our waters are being phased out. Engineer Uduri shed some light on the reason why.
I know the major reason why double tankers, double-hull vessels were brought into operation was because of accidents that had to do with single-hull vessels. There is no additional protection for them. And so if we have them all over Nigerian waters, we are running a very high risk of pollution with these vessels around. So I think it is better that they come together as ship owners and appeal to the government. I know Nimasa as an agency has a 4-point agenda. And one of these agendas is to encourage, stimulate the development of indigenous shipping capacity. And so a lot of ship operators are going to benefit from this Nimasa's agenda to encourage them to acquire newer and better ships so that they can partake in this cabotage trade.
Nimasa is therefore in the process of implementing the phasing out of single-hull vessels. Engineer Femowe Abel, the Deputy Director Maritime Survey and Certification, gave us a time frame Nimasa was working with to meet the international regulation.
We've already stopped registering single-hull vessels in Nigeria since 2010 January. So final stop to their existence in our country in 2015. Single-hull vessels are a threat to our territorial waters because of the risk of pollution. Single-hull vessels in Nigeria now, a lot of them exist in Nigerian waters because many of our ship owners still acquire single-hull vessels, maybe ignorantly, or some are not well informed, but we've done a lot of sensitization exercise concerning acquisition of single-hull tankers in Nigeria.
Carrying out flag state inspection is the duty that Engineer Femowe Abel's unit is saddled with, and he obliged us with some of the fundamentals of flag administration operations.
But Nimasa does two types of inspections when we go on board ships. We do scheduled inspections, of which the captain, the management and the crew are fully aware of the coming of a surveyor on board, arranged. But the idea of scheduled inspections in most cases is to carry out inspections leading to the issuance of certificates relevant to different conventions, and at times to review and renew expired certificates. That is, scheduled visits we carry out on board ships. But there are still some visits we carry out unscheduled. A surveyor goes on board without any pre-information. He goes on board and checks some equipment to see that they are compliant with the conventions we enforce on board our ships. And many of these inspections we go on board for, there are specific documents for different conventions. Those documents are issued after detailed inspection of their equipment and machinery. If it's ascertained that they are compliant, we issue certificates.
A peculiar aspect of maritime and shipping practice involves the activities of what is referred to as classification societies. These societies are trusted organizations that the industry rely upon to initially audit the standards of ship that subscribe to them. We asked Engineer Femowe which classification societies Nigeria approves of, and if it is true that it is only IACS recognized societies that Nigeria approves of.
Many of these recognized organizations, classification societies in Nigeria, belong to this IACS association. The thing is, they are renowned, trusted organizations. IACS certify, they audit many of these classification societies to uphold a standard. Nimasa, as the agency, apex agency, regulatory agency in the country, we recognize a lot of classification societies. The basis of our recognition of these societies, if they apply for recognition and if they meet up the conditions, we have conditions for them to meet. Firstly, they have to have an established office in Nigeria. Then they must have their surveyors, exclusive surveyors. So, and exclusive surveyors must be qualified. Of course, they are all qualified since they belong to those societies. Then we recognize them. Yet there are some classification societies that do not belong to IACS that we recognize since they meet these conditions we give them.
As earlier said, new ship constructions are expected to be supervised by the agency on classification society, as the case may be. However, we're curious to know if the Nigerian shipping fraternity, comprising of ship operators and shipyard owners, as well as Nigerian operators who prefer to commission construction of new ships in the foreign shipyards, have embraced the practice. Engineer Dominic Alim, the Assistant Director Maritime Survey and Certification, had an answer for us.
New vessels to be built in Nigeria by Nigerian shipyard, they are expected to submit a plan, and that plan is expected to be approved prior to construction. Yes, it is true that the shipbuilding industry is one of the areas in the industry that there's a lot of potential for the country. But it is also true that that area needs to be regulated. They need to build vessels to specifications and guidelines. But whether the shipbuilding industry is so much embracing it, I think I would say no, not totally. But the awareness is growing. They are coming on board gradually because, one, it is one of the requirements for registering a ship. And the law is specific on it, that you must have plan approval before you start building. Because I said there is not full compliance yet, but the thing is that there is awareness. And the agency is aware of the shortcomings, and the agency is working towards it by organizing stakeholders fora with shipbuilding industry, so that they will realize, appreciate what the law says and why it is advisable, advantageous for us to go that way.
The notion of seeking approval for the plans of a ship or vessel to be built might sound a bit too much. However, there are quite a number of benefits to be gained from doing what the regulations require.
If you build a vessel and the vessel was not built to approved plan, you stand the risk of not getting that vessel registered. And then if the purpose of building a ship is for you to use the vessel to trade or register it, and if you cannot do that, then you would have spent a lot of money for nothing. Remember that a vessel that has no registration cannot trade. It's a phantom ship. And for you, if you intend to register a vessel in Nigeria, that plan approval must be secured. And the only way you can get that is to ensure that that vessel has been built to the approved plan, approved by the administration.
Finally, we asked Captain Bala Agaba when Nigerians should expect to derive the benefits of the reforms taking place at Nimasa.
Well, currently we have the personnel on board, and what we are doing now is training. As I'm speaking to you now, we have 8 of our newly recruited staff who have gone to Southampton to undertake the postage control course. So they are going to come back, they are going to train the others. We're going to send more there when we have a slot for the training. And when we finish the training, we are trying to arrange with the Lloyd Surveyor, ABS, to help us train some of the surveyors we just recruited. So when we have them on board, we'll find that it will be easier for us to comply with our IMO obligations. So we are looking at, before the end of this year, I think we should be in position to call ourselves a really established maritime administration.
With the impending enforcement of the 2006 Maritime Labour Convention, all hands are on deck in preparation for its ratification and implementation here in Nigeria. To this end, stakeholders within the maritime sector have been engaged in a series of workshops and seminars in a bid to better acquaint themselves with the convention. One such workshop took place recently in Lagos, and it had senior members of the Maritime Safety Department in attendance. Here's that report as prepared by Patrick Doyle and presented by Amanda Akpan.
If there's one agency of government that takes its mandate seriously, it will be Nimasa. The strategic relevance of the agency's mandate is such that it reposes a great deal of responsibility on the management of the agency. This explains why the agency will go to any length to acquire the much needed knowledge to galvanize it to a measured approach to fulfilling its mandate. Recently, the top echelon of the Maritime Safety Department attended a workshop organized by Classification Society on the Maritime Labour Convention. The workshop had many stakeholders in the maritime sector in attendance, with a good number of them being ship owners. Attendees at the workshop were exposed to very detailed aspects of the Maritime Labour Convention. Areas covered include guidance on implementing the Maritime Labour Convention 2006 on social security for seafarers as issued by the ILO Standards Department, guidelines for flag states inspections under the Maritime Labour Convention 2006, and guidelines for port state control officers carrying out inspections under the Maritime Labour Convention 2006. The facilitator, Captain Steve Blair, gave us a background as to the reason for organizing the workshop.
What we're hoping to gain from this workshop is by giving both Nimasa and the clients who operate Nigerian flag vessels a broad and better understanding of the convention requirements and what they need to do to meet the compliance requirements once the Nigerian government have ratified the convention and it enters into force for their vessels.
We also sought to know if it was confident that the workshop was meeting its objectives in terms of the quality of attendance.
Certainly in terms of the level of numbers that are here, I think it's very evident that the people here have a great thirst for knowledge of the convention and want to learn more about it and want to understand what it means to them. In terms of their understanding, I think they're at the beginning of the the road is understanding, and they're building up their knowledge as days go by, and by the time the convention enters into force here in Nigeria, they will be in a position to obtain certification.
Engineer James Ayo, Assistant Director in the Maritime Safety Department, who attended the workshop, expressed his delight at the organization of the workshop. According to Engineer Ayo, the workshop was indeed timely and welcome as it addressed the very important issue of the welfare of seafarers. He opined that Nimasa, as the regulatory agency in the maritime sector, stood to gain valuable insights into the convention pending its ratification by Nigeria and its coming into force by August 2013. The workshop turned out to be very stimulating for all who attended, as the facilitator appeared to have a firm grasp of the issues.
And don't forget, there is a requirement within the convention that a copy of the convention document, that is this one, is carried on board each ship. It doesn't have to be a fancy one that you bought. As I said, you can download it off the ILO website, put a bit of a binding on it, otherwise pages will get lost, and make sure that a copy is available on board each of your ships. There's a requirement of the convention that you carry a copy of the convention on board each ship.
It was not just the one-sided affair, as participants engaged Captain Blair in robust discussions on the issues of maritime labor, not least where the contribution of Nimasa's head of maritime safety, Engineer Vincent Udoye, who led the Nimasa delegation to the workshop.
There's a statement you made, and I would like more clarification on that. You said that if a vessel from a non-ratifying country comes into a country that has ratified the convention, these vessels might be subject to posted control inspection. Is that correct?
No. What I said is that if a vessel from a non-ratifying country enters the port of a ratifying country after the convention has entered into force, it would be subject to inspection and compliance mechanism that is available in that port.
At the end of the workshop, we caught up with Engineer Udoye at his office and asked him what he thought about the level of sensitization about the convention.
I must say that a lot has been done so far, because I understand that this convention is almost getting to the final stage when it will be submitted to the Federal Executive Council for ratification. But Nimasa, on its own part, has gone ahead to create some sensitization with the relevant stakeholders, and more is yet to be done, because after the ratification, we will also champion the domestication of this convention. I will now begin to take it to the grassroots, because it is very, very relevant, especially to do with maritime labor. The seafarers on board the ship, how are they treated? How are they paid? What are their working conditions? What are their working hours? Nimasa will be highly instrumental to make sure that this convention is taken all around the entire federation, so that all the stakeholders, relevant stakeholders in the industry, will now be aware and be now sensitized to know that such a convention has been ratified by Nigeria, and of course Nigerian flagged vessels must also be made to comply with the provisions of that convention.
Up next is the Maritime Cargo Report, which is simply a breakdown of cargoing ships expected to berth in ports within the Lagos Pilotage District this week. As always, the Maritime Cargo Report is brought to you courtesy of the Shipping Development Department of Nimasa.
There are 3 motor vessels awaiting berth at the Lagos Pilotage District this week. One of the vessels is laden with bulk malt, the second with bulk urea, and the third is laden with containers. On the liquid consignment, there are 7 motor tanker vessels awaiting berth at the Lagos Pilotage District this week. Of that number, 3 are laden with PMS, also known as petrol, 3 are laden with AGO, also known as diesel, and the 7th vessel is laden with DPK, also known as kerosene.
And that is our show for this week. As always, we hope we kept you educated and informed. Now, please don't forget, Nimasa This Week is an interactive show. We want to hear what you think, your comments, your questions, and even your criticisms. All you need to do is to send those emails to the current address showing on your screen. I'm going to be here same time, same station next week. Until then, I'm wishing you smooth sailing and bon voyage.